This week we're holding study hall in the almighty pit of Carcoon, where we'll be slowly digested for thousands of years. But hey, at least we didn't get bought by Disney. Yet. Greetings and welcome once again to Max Scoville's Study Hall. I'm your host, Max Scoville, and Study Hall is the show where I take a particular video game that you wish you were playing and recommend a handful of other non-video game pop culture media to keep you busy while you are not playing it. Last episode, I said I'd be talking about Star Wars 1313, and a bunch of you were like, "But Professor Scoville, Star Wars 1313 got canceled. How can you talk about a canceled game?" Well, I can talk about a canceled game if I want to, because this is my show. And also because EA acquired that Star Wars license and they said they'll be announcing plans at E3, so who knows, maybe Star Wars 1313 isn't canceled and it'll get resurrected, but hey, maybe not. Either way, it is fun to imagine what it might have been based on a little that we know about it. 1313 was going to be the first M-rated Star Wars game in the franchise and promised to give players a change of pace from all that Jedi vs. Sith Clone Wars bullshit, instead focusing on the wretched hive of scum and villainy that is the Coruscant criminal underworld. It wasn't until after the game's cancellation that word got out that it was going to star none other than fan-favorite bounty hunter Boba Fett. Now, as a lot of you know, I'm a big, stupid, annoying Boba Fett fanboy, and I have been for a long time, so this news sort of bummed me out. While I keep telling myself that Star Wars 1313 probably would have been a total mess of a game thanks to its drawn-out development, I still wish we could get a proper Boba Fett game. But we can't have nice things, because we're Star Wars nerds. So in the meantime, I figured I'd run down some of my personal favorite Boba Fett-related stuff, so if you're a casual fan of Star Wars and you're kind of cautious about the expanded universe and you don't know where to start, I can point you in the right direction. Boba Fett. And hey, if you're one of those people who thinks that Boba Fett is lame because all he did in the movies is get kicked into a pit by a blind guy with a stick, then sit tight, because I'll give you some examples of why I think Boba Fett is so great, starting with his debut as a terrible 70s cartoon character. Boba Fett first appeared in the 1978 Star Wars Holiday Special, which is something that's about as terrible as it sounds. Between Wookiees learning about the true meaning of Life Day, aka Space Christmas, and a musical number featuring none other than B. Arthur, the Holiday Special is pretty infamously terrible. I mean, it's terrible enough that George Lucas has stated that he wished he could track down every copy and smash it with a hammer. And you know that something's bad if George Lucas owns the rights to it, and he'd rather destroy it than re-release a special edition of it 3 times. So anyway, in one of the Holiday Special's cartoons, Luke Skywalker makes a graceful water landing on some swampy planet, sounds familiar, and he's greeted by this masked man named Boba Fett, who rolls up on this brontosaurus thing that he keeps beating with his rifle for trying to eat Luke's food and spaceship. Sure, maybe Boba Fett didn't do much in the movies besides get knocked off a barge by a guy with a stick, but Boba Fett made a damn good first impression. He's this dude with a jetpack who rides around on a dinosaur while abusing it. And then shortly thereafter, but still before The Empire Strikes Back was actually released, Kenner Toys offered this mail-in promotion for a Boba Fett action figure. So by the time Boba Fett actually appeared in a movie, like a whole generation of kids already had his action figure and they'd seen him pistol whipping a dinosaur in a cartoon that was supposed to be about Christmas. Why would you not like Boba Fett? Now, it's not 1978 anymore and you're not a 6-year-old kid. At least I hope you're not if you're watching this show. So you probably need like a more badass side of Boba Fett before you're impressed. Okay, that's cool. Let's take a look at some comics. Between 1995 and 1997, Boba Fett appeared in several one-shot comics. These were written by John Wagner with art by Cam Kennedy, who are best known for their work together on Judge Dredd, another badass dude who hunts people down while wearing a really cool helmet. The Boba Fett comics basically turned Star Wars into the Wild West, with Fett doing dirty jobs on Outer Rim planets that make Mos Eisley look like a gated community. Cam Kennedy's art often looks more like it's out of Mad Max than Star Wars, which might bug some people, purists, but I was totally into it for giving Star Wars a bit of variety. Another slightly more conventional Boba Fett comic, Enemy of the Empire, is a 4-issue miniseries that has Fett chasing after a decapitated fortune teller's head, and then eventually squaring off against Darth Vader, which is about as cool as it sounds because it's Boba Fett and Darth Vader fighting. The Boba Fett Omnibus collects both of these comics along with a whole bunch more, and it's one big fat volume. It'll always set you back like 20 bucks, and it's pretty easy to track down because it's still in print. But hey, maybe you want to feel really smart and read a book without pictures. Well, good news, because there's like 100 Star Wars novels set in the Star Wars expanded universe. The bad news is that not all of them are about Boba Fett. Lame. I should probably note that most of my favorite expanded universe stuff came out before the prequels, so its place in official Star Wars continuity is a little bit contradictory to the movies. One example in particular is The Last One Standing. This is a short story by Daniel Keyes Moran from the Star Wars Tales of the Bounty Hunters book. It's really good. The prequels would have been a lot better if Lucas had actually used this version of Boba Fett instead of making him like a 10-year-old kid who was cloned by some dude who wore a lot of purple and got his head cut off like a bitch. The original expanded universe Boba Fett was basically this ex-cop who'd gotten kicked off of the force for killing his commanding officer for being too corrupt. Most of the story takes place years after Return of the Jedi, with Boba Fett in his later years, and he's never fully recovered from his time in the Sarlacc pit, so he's like hobbling around with one fake leg, and he's going after Han Solo one last time. It's really dark and gritty. It's kind of got like a Max Payne and space vibe to it. So if you're interested in Star Wars 1313, you'd probably get a kick out of this. Overall, the Star Wars Tales of short story collections are a whole lot of fun, and they're a great place to start if you're trying to get into the expanded universe. The Bounty Hunters one in particular is really great, so great that it's been adapted into rap music. Nerdcore rapper MC Chris made a name for himself on the internet with his song Fetts Vet, a catchy little ditty that explained how Boba Fett turned to bounty hunting in order to finance his Corvette car. While he could have stopped there, MC Chris expanded on the idea of rapping about Star Wars bounty hunters paired with vehicles from Earth, and since Fetts Vet, he's released Dengar's dump truck, Zuckuss' Prius, IG-88's 57 Chevy, and Bosk on a Segway, all of which managed to accurately summarize the backstories of those particular bounty hunters. So if nothing else, you gotta give him credit for at least committing to a theme. Now here's the part of the show where I talk about collectibles. I've been casually filling my house with Boba Fett themed garbage for some time. Most recently, I accidentally sent several of my student loan payments to Sideshow Collectibles by accident, and they sent me this absolutely gorgeous 1/6 scale action figure. If you also hate paying your student loans, in spite of having a grown-up job, you can snag one of these babies for around $175, which is totally justifiable if you pretend that I just said calories instead of dollars. On the other end of the spectrum, there's a Star Wars Lego set on shelves right now that's the Desert Skiff from Return of the Jedi. It's got a little tiny Boba Fett who can fit into a little tiny Sarlacc pit, and then a tiny Klatooinian skiff guard and Lando Calrissian in disguise as Tamtel Screech. That set'll run you around 20 or 25 bucks, plus the price of dignity as you make your walk of shame down the Lego aisle to the Toys R Us register. Finally, if you want to show Boba Fett some love without spending stupid amounts of money or buying toys intended for children, there's also this cute little bobblehead, which sits all sassily on your desk or monitor or Ouya, nodding at everything you say, letting all your coworkers know that you're secretly a big fat nerd. Anyway, this episode was kind of loosely related to video games, and I apologize for that, but this is my show, and I got to talk about Boba Fett, so I did. We might never get Star Wars 1313, but someday, maybe we'll get a proper Boba Fett game with jetpacks and grappling hooks and spiked boots and knee darts and a heavily modified Kuat Systems fire spray class patrol ship, but, you know, until then, all we have is our imaginations and really expensive action figures. If you guys have some other Boba Fett or Star Wars recommendations, drop them in the comments below, and if you want to tell us all about how overrated a character Boba Fett is, you can do that too, though I can't promise I won't say mean things to you. I mean it. If you hate Star Wars and spent today's study hall drawing dicks in your binder and trying to throw pencils into the ceiling, well, you guys demanded it, so next week is all about The Last of Us. Get those spooky brain funguses ready. Oh, there's the bell. That's all for this week's study hall. I'll be back next week to tell you guys about the end of the world. In the meantime, remember this, fellas. If you're with your special lady and she wants you to put Captain Solo in the cargo hold, be safe. He's no good to you dead. And on that note, no woman will ever want to sleep with me again.